In this section of building a biblical business, we look at obedience and what that means to us as well as to the Lord, and we also look at disobedience. And I want to briefly tell you something that I didn't do, that therefore was disobedient to the Lord's request, and as a result of that I will never know what the outcome could have been, what the outcome should have been, if I'd have immediately been obedient to the Lord. It was at a time when the magazine project was coming to an end in England, and we had some back copies that we wanted to sell. And a few sales went through, but nothing like what we were really looking for in order to recoup finances. And I remember just sitting in front of my computer, very weighted down by quite a few thousand of these copies in a warehouse somewhere in England. And I heard the Lord, and he said, give them away. But I was caught up in my own emotions, and I immediately said, no, they have to be sold. There are people that we want to pay for their good efforts. And I didn't hear the Lord again on that subject, but it didn't take very long, maybe a couple of days afterwards, when I came to realize the truth that the Lord was asking me to do something for him so that we could benefit. And really what was associated with that request was a test to see that I was ready, under whatever circumstances, to say, okay, Lord, I can do that. And I failed. And because I said no, there was no other opportunity given to distribute these copies of magazines. And I very soon realized that I'd made quite a big mistake. Because of me being caught up in my emotions, I'd pushed the Lord away. I'd pushed him out of the program, so to speak. I'd taken charge. And so as a consequence, I have and can never see the result of what the Lord had intended if I had followed that through. And if we turn to Deuteronomy 28, verses 1 through 2, it tells us that if we obey God, then he can bless us, and the blessings will overtake us. And in Deuteronomy 28, verse 15, it tells us that if we don't disobey him, then we're cursed, and the curses will overtake us. So, interestingly, if you choose to obey God, then the blessing will overtake us, or if we choose to disobey God, then the curse will overtake us. And I'm sure that we would all prefer to walk into a blessing rather than have to battle out of a curse. So, the Bible, I have found, is full of people that have obeyed the Lord and disobeyed the Lord. Joshua obeyed the Lord, and he won every single battle. Nothing could stop him. He was obedient, and he possessed the promised land. So what is your promised land? What has the Lord shown you that he wants for you to take hold of, to own, to grow in, and for him to add to? Because that is your birthright, that he wants you to flourish in, that he be glorified. Your promised land is a reality if we are obedient. Part of my promised land was to get married. I've only been married 3 years, which means I was past 40 when that happened. And for whatever reason, I had to wait that long. Same with my husband. But we didn't stop believing, and we were always in prayer, asking the Lord, if we have sinned, show us, convict us. And something I heard just recently, which really uplifted me about conviction, was that if you're convicted of a sin in your heart, that is not a bad thing. The sin is a bad thing, but the conviction is a sign that you are becoming more and more like the Lord, and that you really treasure your relationship with him, and you're honouring him. And that's what obedience is all about. It's about trusting him, honouring him, and continuing in your development as well as your relationship developing. It's always a growth process. We all think that, well, we can have that promised land now. If we had that now, it would just be so much easier. But the truth is, if you haven't got something right now, it's because it will probably be taken away from you because your level of maturity, obedience in the Lord, isn't where it should be and could be. So if you're being convicted to be obedient, don't let that weigh heavy on you. Know that it is because your heart has changed. It's been circumcised and your mind is being transformed. You're not being condemned, but the Lord doesn't condemn, but he does convict. And your obedience is a measure of that conviction. Again, by saying it was Joshua that was obedient, nothing could stop him, and because he was obedient, he possessed the promised land. What is your promised land? You are going to have to be obedient to be able to possess it. You have to overcome to be able to move forwards, so that you do shine like a light for the Lord, so that those blessings do overtake you. Imagine this. You fall asleep tonight after praying, and then when you wake up in the morning, because you've been obedient, the blessings are waiting just for you to walk into them. Not for you to claim. You've already done that. Not for you to battle through and grasp. It's already done because you're obedient. But to just walk into, because they're there, just ahead of you, because they've overtaken you, ready to rain down upon you because you're obedient.